Alright, I'm back with another Destiny video, and today I am talking about Gambit, which is something I don't think I've ever done a video on. That's because Gambit is not exactly the most relevant part of the game at the moment, or really ever, not really since Season of the Drifter, and even that was debatable. But when Beyond Light hit, it did undergo a number of changes, including some drastic slimming down, with Gambit Prime going away and sort of being merged into regular Gambit for, they didn't call it Gambit Perfected, but that was, kind of the idea. I'm talking about it now because I just got Gilded Dredgen, which was absurd because, I'm not even, that much of a Gambit player. I don't seem to hate it as much as everybody, but I wasn't just bottom dollar grinding because I don't care that much about getting a bottom dollar. The odds of getting a role you want with 12 perks in each slot and the drop rates the way they are now are just absurd. So I don't know. I was just kind of doing it to do it. I did grind a little bit for it at first, and then you're like, oh, I'm 30 wins out of the 50 I need, and then I did all the other steps by accident. I don't even remember what the other steps were, but they weren't that hard. It was do the most damage in a game, or summon the most blockers, or deposit the most motes or something, and that all the other steps kind of just happen as you play, whereas the 50 wins is something. That was quite a while, and I figured out, my Gambit builds. I didn't really go back to Warmind cells or anything, but it's given me perspective on kind of the current state of Gambit and what's good and what's bad. And there are things that are good about it. I do like the slimming down of Gambit to a single round now. I think it's good to have, relatively quick Gambit games. I don't really miss the roles for Gambit Prime, even though that kind of made it distinctive. I can see those, some version of those being put in as mods, like they kind of hinted at earlier, to make things a little more interesting, but I don't miss, the hyper-powered kind of invader mods and things like that. But overall, I think they have a good balance of PvE enemy strength, and mostly they have the invasion stuff down. I'll talk a little bit about that. But this does feel like the best version of Gambit with a few caveats. A few, meaning quite a few, but we'll go through what I think could be improved. I'm really not super thrilled with the fact that they deleted 2 maps, and now there's only 4 maps total for Gambit. I understand why they did that, because if we're going with Prime rules here and kind of the enemy setup for Primes, they never had the 2 maps they deleted, the Dreaming City map and the Tangled Shore map. They never had those set up for Prime, so that's why they went away, I think. And even though I hated, the lava pits of the Tangled Shore map, I still think it's better to have more Gambit maps than less, and taking 2 away to make the pool just 4 maps is absurdly small, and it doesn't feel good to play the same maps on repeat over and over again. I really want those 2 maps to return, and I really want new Gambit maps. I mean, PvP's undergoing this too, where it's kind of wild. We got Europa, and we did not get any new Crucible maps for it, and we did not get any for Gambit either, obviously, even though Gambit's, I wouldn't even say a secondary consideration. I'd say it's a 9th place consideration. Gambit was not mentioned at all in the State of the Game post. That was 12,000 words. I don't think it was mentioned even one time, even in passing. So it's not very high on anyone's priority list, it seems. And yet it's still treated like a total third pillar of the game, with pinnacles tied to it and its own reputation system, its own bounties. And it's supposed to be a pretty significant part of the game, but just like PvP, they're not investing very much in it. They're investing even less than PvP. And that kind of shows in many of the aspects. I think there are still some things that need to be fine-tuned with it. Games can be very lopsided. I think the number one thing right now, based on the current sandbox and the changes they made to the Primeval especially, I don't miss the Gambit Prime health gating of the Primeval, where you got to go and kill 2 envoys and then burn it a little bit and then kill 2 more. That system was bad, and it made the Primeval fight take 60% of the match length, which was not fun at all. The current one, I think the Primeval needs a little more health, because right now we're kind of in a situation where if the other team, or if your team or the other team summons the Primeval first, it is very, very hard for anyone to catch up, no matter how many invasions there are. Like, unless you have the most perfect invader of all time who can team wipe every time they go in, it's just so easy to burn the primeval down. One aspect of this that I find weird is, like, after killing the first two envoys, the once you get past the first health bar, the other envoys spawn, but you can burn those down like with your primary in like half a second. Like, for some reason, I think the Primeval Slayer bonus stacks on top of for envoys too. So like you just rip through the next sets of envoys like they're not even there. And then once you have like Primeval stack 4, it's use any amount of heavy, any supers, and it's game over. But even before that, like, we have so many just kind of absurd things now. Like, Rockets got their huge buff, so if anyone is coordinating with Rockets, and there's always Lament. And now there's Thunder Crash Titan. I'm seeing all sorts of Thunder Crash Titans in this, including that's what I'm running, because the damage with Curious is just so absurd that if you have even 2 Thunder Crash Titans on your team and you get a Primeval up, you're probably gonna win. And then if you have like 4, it's like you can just delete the Primeval instantly. Like, it's not even close. And I know there have always been fast Primeval burning strategies in the past, but I think this feels like the least amount of health the Primeval has ever had, which makes... I do think that most of the focus should be on the moat gathering phase and stuff, but it makes it really easy to kind of burn it down if you have a remotely coordinated team in any sense, and you're able to summon first. Invasion seems better than it used to be, and yet I think it can still be pretty lopsided. Like, in a game where your team is just getting utterly demolished, it seems weird to me that like the other team can have their Primeval summoned and still have the ability to invade you and just like wipe the floor with you. So it prevents catch up to an even greater degree. It's better than it was because there's not as many back-to-back-to-back invasions, but in terms of like punishing teams that are already down, I still think there needs to be some work done there. And we're still kind of at a point where one good invasion that happens probably right after the first set of enemies or two can determine really the entire course of the game if they get any kills. Because if you get even 2 kills and eliminate 10 to 15 moats, that can be the difference of the entire game, especially in an era when you can just summon the Primeval, and that's almost a guaranteed win if you can do it like even just a little bit faster than the other team. I've been running, I showed my loadout here earlier in this clip, but Extraordinary Rendition with major spec, like every enemy is pretty much a major in this now, so you kind of want that on. I have been running a sniper, sometimes for invading or counter invading, not very often. I don't do that very often, and I'm a pretty bad sniper in general, but also for things like Shriekers, I found it's really useful for, or Cabal turrets, or Wizards, because this Far Future can pop those shields. It can pop Centurion shields with Solar. And it can do okay boss damage. I don't know if I have it spec for that. And then obviously one of my many masterworked rocket launchers, and Curious, because what else are you gonna run? In a perfect world, I would have like some sort of Warmind cell build all set up here, because that's still probably the best thing to run in Gambit, because you can clear entire sides at once. But I don't know. I didn't get like hyper optimized for this. I was just kind of doing the basics of what I thought was good. Overall, I think Gambit, like, in and of itself, is in a better place than it's been in the past. This probably is the best version of Gambit, and yet I'm worried about it just fading further and further into obscurity. I think the only thing redeeming it this season is bottom dollar, and everyone is in Gambit to farm that, and then accidentally getting Gilded Dredgen along the way. I think that's been its saving grace here. I really want those maps to come back. I think that they can do some tweaking to bring those back. I want new maps. I know it doesn't seem like the best use of resources in the current state of the game, and yet if you're going to have this mode, as a constant presence in the game, I think you need to keep adding to it. I think there should be some tweaks to Primeval Health, Final Invader phase, things like that. I just heard my breakfast. It's here. They were knocking on the door. But overall, like, I didn't hate this grind. It wasn't like the worst thing ever, and it just seems it's so fast that losing doesn't even really matter. Like, it's a very short, period of time if you're just getting stomped, and then you can just bulldoze your way to a win also. So these games are, what, I don't know, 5-7 minutes. I don't even know how long this last one was, but they can be extremely short, which I think is good. And it's even something you can just like farm Cabal gold for, because it's such a quick activity to do. But there is still work to be done, and I hope they don't just like totally ignore the remaining issues that it has, and they keep adding to it to some degree. I think Gambit is a creative, unique mode, and it should be continued to be expanded on. Like, I think the slimming down actually worked well. I think having Gambit Prime and the normal Gambit was not a good thing, and I think this is the right decision. And I talked long enough to get an Eevee cameo, so here we are. We'll see how it develops over the course of the next year. I do not expect a significant amount of resources to be devoted to it, and yet I think just with a few more tweaks, with a little bit more effort put towards it, it could, probably be in the best state it's ever been overall, which honestly, we might already be there. And it just even having rewards like bottom dollar as a possibility make it actually kind of worthwhile to farm. Especially they're going to increase the drop rate, so that'll be even better. But we'll see what happens. That has been my my fantastic loss that you just got to witness here. That's usually how, half my games went. That's just how it goes. But we'll see what happens with Gambit. I'm not expecting a lot, but I think it has potential that it should be still invested in, and I think the game is better for having it. I just hope that they can give it any amounts of love and care, and not just totally ignore it going forward and think that it's just can coast from here until the next few years, especially since Destiny 2 is going to be around for at least 3-4 more years that we know from the current roadmap. So we'll see what happens, and yeah, I will see you guys next time. Take care.